Hello and welcome to issue 12 of my weekly comic video. Got another pretty big pull this week, so let's dive right on in. First up, Justice League number 12. Now, haven't been a big fan of the Justice League book since the relaunch last year. Primarily just because of the roster. It's nothing new. It's something that we've had bajillions of stories on before, with the exception of maybe Cyborg, but he's definitely a background B-lister that's there for only one obvious reason. This issue ends the mini arc that was going on in the book for the last couple of issues, that deals with basically something of a new villain, though not really, and public opinion of the Justice League group. Again, concepts that we have heard so many times before. It's even somewhat relatable to the Justice League animated series. This type of story has been done to death, so the villain isn't really anything new. His main abilities and such seem to be more affecting the League's past, apparently the League had something to do with the death of his family and so forth. The problem with the story primarily is that it goes so far against the characters of the League that it seems to be awfully forced. Just about every member of the League has pretty much already accepted the fate of the loved ones or whatever that have been taken away, so it's kind of hard to be all that entertained with the fact that they would be so so downtrodden, so depressed and fooled and whatnot by what's going on in the story. So overall, it's really a disappointing book, a disappointing story overall. However, we do get some previews at the end of the issue about what's going to be going forward with the Justice League come October, and it looks to be a lot more exciting things going on. Some new twists, potentially a new roster, and just a different approach, something that I was actually kind of hoping that they would do when the book launched, instead of a year later. But whatever the case need be, it's been a decent book. It looks like it would be a decent book as things continues. Currently, it's just nothing all that exciting, and I find it kind of annoying that it's ignoring a little bit about what's going on in the individual's books. Now, I know that this is supposed to take place sometime before, but it's just really out of character about how things are progressing a little bit. Be interested to know how it's going forward, but this is not the point to be in. It looks like issue 0 might be a good jumping on point to this book. However, I don't really know how the origin is going to take place, the story of the origin, since technically issue 1 kind of explained the origin of the Justice League. So I don't know what issue 0 is going to be all about. It seems to have a lot more to do with the Mr. Marvel or Shazam type of a thing, but so it may or may not be a good jumping on point. I do know that the books coming out in October do again appear to be a little bit more entertaining, and those would be a good jump on point. Just for now, this issue 12 in the book is not really worth a pickup. The art is gorgeous. Jim Lee did a great job, as always, with the characters and all that. It's just the stories are nothing overly exciting about. Next up, Winter Soldier number 9. Now, this book from Marvel continues to be a very good, very interesting series. With all the other nonsense that's going on in the Marvel universe, it's good to actually have a good book it's always good to have books that are ignoring the all that nonsense going on. Issue 9 continues the story where the Bucky, the Winter Soldier, is kind of in a sort of a war game, sort of against one of the former Russian super soldiers, if you will, like him, that didn't wake up well from his cryogenic sleep or whatever, and he has successfully brainwashed the Black Widow, very similar to how it was done in the past with Black Widow and with Bucky. So this issue picks up right after the Widow's kidnapping. And it continues the story on from there. It continues to be a very entertaining book, and it doesn't appear to be stopping anytime soon. The next story arc seems to be incredibly entertaining. If you liked the stuff like Bourne Identity, then this would be a good book. If you're looking for a good spy book, or what I would think of Captain America of sorts of old, but if he was more covert than anything else, it's been a very entertaining book. A lot of elements are well worth the read in the book, so definitely one to pick up. As far as a jumping on point goes, it's not a bad jump on point, though you may want to pick up at least issue 8, but if all possible, I would recommend a trade if you can track them down, or some back issues of the book, just so that you can know what's been going on in the background a little bit. But definitely this is one to add to the pool if you're more if you're looking for an exciting book, especially from Marvel, that doesn't have anything to do with really your typical superhero community at large. So I highly recommend this series and the particular issue in itself. Next up, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles micro series number 7. This particular issue focuses on April, and kind of gives a little bit more of a character development for the character, kind of like what's been doing for the other issues in this micro series. In this particular reboot, April is a scientist, not necessarily a genetics type of a deal, but somewhere along those lines. She is working for Baxter Stockman, which we all know how things turn out for him. But really, this entire micro series is a good read. The character development that's been in each one of the books, including this one, has been very entertaining. It gives us a closer look at the characters and what they do and why they do and how they think about it, and things that you just we don't get from the main book. It kind of helps explain the main book a little bit as well. What's kind of a little bit of a disheartening deal is the micro series started off just being a side deal, but now, starting with at least the Splinter and the Casey Jones books, it looks like this has become more integral to the actual ongoing series than anything else, which is a bit of a disappointment. And I probably will stop after this one. I think they're still going to continue on, but it's going to be less appealing, I guess. But it is good. It is a good book, but there's no reason or excuse why this type of content couldn't be put into the main book. Instead of having another $4 book to pick up. I get it. It's a business thing, and if they can get another $4 from you, so be it. It's so blatant that it's really annoying. But if you do have the ability to pick up the trades, at least for the micro series, you won't be disappointed if you're a fan of the characters. As far as a list and a pull goes, if you're already collecting the other book, then I don't know. It's a tough recommendation. They're good books. They're just kind of expensive for what they do. So it may be worth it to wait. I know they did a trade for the 4 Turtles, so they're surely going to do a trade with Splinter KC in probably April. So that may be worth the money, especially if you didn't own the other 2 already, to kind of wait for that to happen. But again, it is a good book. I would recommend it if you have a little bit of an extra cash in order to make it happen. Other than that, it can be skipped. It's much better. The main series is a much more recommended than this, if you can only do one or the other. Next up, Batman Beyond Unlimited number 7. Now this continues to be another highly recommended book from DC. This is in the animated universe, not the main canon universe. So this picks up after the series picks up after. There's been a couple of small mini-series, but it pretty much picks up after the animated series fails, but ends. The only really downside to the comic is that it's basically 3, almost 4 stories that shoved into one book, so you don't get a whole lot of story in any one of them because of it's having to share the time slot with all the other different things going on. So, but in the somewhat on a brighter note, we probably wouldn't be getting these stories from an individual basis if it was split up into their own book. I know that the success of the book has warranted at least some thought about splitting some up, but until that happens, we're kind of stuck with something like Countdown, where we only get like 3 or 4 pages of one story, and then we have to move on to the next, and then we wait until there's not a whole lot of time for anything to happen in the book because of that. However, in this particular issue, we continue the Batman Beyond story, which continues to deal with the organized Joker gang that's forming in Gotham. It seems to be a very interesting story. It's just not a whole lot happens. Batman's not really even in the book, so he is a little bit in the end, and there's a little bit of a potential story twist or universe twist that's taking place there, but again, it's very short and not a whole lot happening. Then we've got the Justice League Unlimited story that continues their adventures or story arc on Apocalypse. But really, again, 4 pages, we get a little bit of a fight scene, and that's it. Really, we get a couple of pages of that, and then we move on to the next. So it's exciting to see what's going on with it and some of the changes that they're doing, especially taking cues from the Justice League and Superman animated series. It's too short. You don't have time to get engrossed to it. There's not enough time for anything to happen. But still, it's if you could read these as like grouped, like last couple of issues, kind of grouped them into one, it would be a far better. It's a good story. It's just crammed in there with everything else. Next, we get a kind of an origin story of the Aqua Girl. I'm sorry, I can't remember her name off the top of my head. We get kind of the story from that, which is basically a recap of the one of the initial Aquaman stories from the Justice League cartoon. Where his son is kidnapped by Orn and he has to cut off his arm to save him, and then we get the story of the daughter, where how her origin came into be, how she was born, and all that stuff. Again, it's good to kind of clear that up a little bit, since we didn't really know, even from the series. We knew who her father was, obviously, but we didn't really know how all that worked out. And it does lead to some future storylines as well. Just again, I rather have had those pages dedicated to more of the story arcs than anything else. Then the last story that's in the book is a Superman Unlimited story that kind of goes very much against what's going on in the other books, where Bruce Wayne's Batman, as Batman, is fighting alongside Superman in a plot devised by basically a AI version of Luthor and his daughter, where in the last couple of issues, there's been some issues with a kryptonite meteor and a bunch of that. So we continue the story, the fight on the streets, with Batman, Superman fighting against Grundy. So again, it goes way out of character. We know, Bruce can't be fighting, which really hurts the overall story, what they're trying to do with that character. But I don't know. The Superman had good build up to this point. I just much rather have seen Terry jump in and help than have Bruce be it, or at least one of his bat bots or something. Just the kind of keep in character with the rest of the stories. Again, not bad, just incredibly short. The series overall, I highly would recommend it. Just don't expect a lot of things happening in each issue. They do a very good job of getting you invested, and then they end it. So it's been a good series. If you enjoy the animated series, then this is well worth a pickup if you want to continue that storyline. And since it is so short, it is a pretty good jumping on point as well. If you haven't been collecting the rest of the books, just because since it's going on very slowly, you can actually keep up pretty well, especially if you've seen the animated series. So that's another recommended title to add to your pull if you haven't already. Next up, Wolverine and the X-Men number 15. This book continues to be one of the best tie-ins, I guess, to the X-Men and Avengers versus X-Men stuff, mainly because pretty much all these issues are ignoring the main event primarily and continuing their story amidst what's going on with the overall story, and that's what makes it interesting. They're trying to survive. They're trying to do what they're doing. It's continuing the stories of the characters and the development of the characters. It's exactly what tie-in books should be. and it's sad that the rest of the Avengers books and everything else can't take a cue from it. But from overall, the last couple of issues have been a very good run. Highly recommend picking this up if you're an X-Men fan, specifically. It's probably the best X-Men book out there, despite the fact that Wolverine is, the main character in yet another book, though he doesn't really take center stage, or he hasn't, in these last couple of issues. So, if you're an X-Men fan, especially an old X-Men fan, these books are definitely something that I would recommend picking up. Next up, another Avengers versus X-Men tie-in. Basically, this is the limited series where you actually get some of the individual fights between the characters. Something that they absolutely couldn't include in the main book, which, yeah, this is another cash-in title. And this just goes so far beyond anything as far as the character themselves go. It ruins the whole Panther and Storm thing, which has been a big thing in Marvel for quite a while. It's kind of sad to have that kind of go up in smoke in a very stupid way, especially since this is a few issues behind what's actually going on in the main story event, so we know how it actually is going to end up being. So it's it's very annoying from that angle. And the whole Hawkeye Angel battle's another one that was just, hey, we have these characters, we have to include them in there, so let's just do something really quick with it. Really, this is a complete waste of $4. This entire series has been a waste of the $4. Even if you're enjoying the X-Men or Avengers vs. X-Men main title books, this is definitely one to skip. It's nothing more than a cheap cash-in from Marvel. It's just not worth the time or the money. The last two books that we'll be covering this week are annuals, which I'm glad to say that these two kind of herald back to how annuals used to be back in the day. Back in the day, of the annuals used to be set up for the next big story arc, or maybe a mini crossover event or whatever within the universe that it takes place in. But for recently, most annuals have been just a complete waste of time, either being a retelling of the origin or a completely unrelated story from the main books, or just something that it makes you think that the writing team and creative team or whatever just someone came up to us and said, oh yeah, we have to have an annual, so let's pump something out really quick. It's been a waste of money for the book. These two issues, however, are not the case. First up, the Superman annual. Now, what this book does is it actually starts setting up the next big, huge story arc that's going to be taking place in a bunch of DC books called HL on Earth. And it's supposed to be a crossover between a bunch of the, should I say, alien-oriented books. The Superman, Supergirl, Stormwatch, potentially, with John Jones. It looks like there's going to have some stuff to do with Superboy and Starfire, potentially, and stuff like that. And this book does a very good job setting that up, to the point that it makes me sad that I have to wait through another month before it kicks off in October. But it does a very good job establishing what it does. It brings back kind of an interesting little villain that was introduced in the Superman book, along with some characters that have had tie-in or non-official tie-ins with Superman. So that's been kind of exciting in its own right, and I can see this kind of being the lead into a bunch of the Justice League changes that are going to be happening in the future too. So it's a very good book. It's truly a Superman book. You know, in the act that he does what he's supposed to do. You know, he's not just overpowering the villain either. You know, it's actually somewhat of a threatening experience. So it's definitely a good one to pick up if you've been picking up any of the super books, or just wanting to know, or a preview of what's coming up with in the DC world. Then this is definitely one that I would highly recommend picking up. And this is coming from someone who's not really a big, huge Superman fan too. So highly recommend that one. The second annual is the Green Lantern annual #1. Now this kicks off the big, huge Rise of the Third Army event for DC, which again, kind of disappointing that you have to wait another month before this stuff really truly kicks off. Though I do think there's going to be a lot with issue zeros that have to deal more with what's going to happen than actual truly origins for at least the Green Lantern universe. But this issue 1 does a very good job in wrapping up what was going on in the Green Lantern book, not the New Guardians or the Corpse books, but the Green Lantern book with Hal Jordan and Sinestro. You know, in the Guardians and how that's going to be playing out. A very much highly recommended book, especially if you've been collecting any of the Green Lantern books. Jeff Johns has done a very good job with this. With these books for quite a while now, and it doesn't look like this new event, the Third Army, is going to be any different. It's definitely a well worth pickup, and it kind of explains again some Justice League stuff that's going to be that has been going on. You know, definitely, even if you're not a Green Lantern fan or haven't been a Green Lantern fan for a while, or you're kind of like me, where the actual Green Lantern book has been a little bit less than appealing for since the relaunch, this I would recommend at least picking this up just to see where things go. You know, type of a thing, just to dip your feet in the water a little bit and see if this doesn't change things up for you a little bit. The only bad thing I've got with about these two annual books is that, like annual books, they are $5 books. So it is a bit more expensive, but I do think that these two in particular, the Superman and the Green Lanterns, is well worth the extra buck that you would spend for the book. It is kind of a cheap thing that they raise the cost for it, but sadly, we're just living in an industry that will nickel and dime you to as much as they possibly can, which is sad, but you know, can't do much about it. So there we go. Another pretty good week overall. Only a few disappointments overall. And we'll be starting next week with the issue zeros, along with hopefully the ever-approaching conclusion to this X-Men Avengers stuff. I'm pretty sure they're not going to be doing, Marvel's not going to be starting its big thing until well into the month. I know there's only like 2 issues left of the Avengers versus X-Men thing, but I don't think that their relaunch, they're not going to try to compete with DC's big thing. So I would expect a lot of DC stuff coming out this month, and not a whole lot of very good Marvel stuff until near the end or maybe the beginning of October. but we'll just kind of have to wait and see on that. So, as always, thanks for watching, and God bless.